Have you ever noticed that, more often than not, the biggest barriers in your life don't come from the outside world? The toughest traps to escape, the bitterest moments, aren't caused by what others do, but by the way you think, act, and see yourself. Believe me when I tell you, no one out there is plotting to make your life miserable. It's time to wake up and realize the real reason you're stuck. It's you. Your doubts, your insecurities, those "I can't do it" and "I'm not good enough" thoughts. Enough, my friend, that ends now. In this video, I'll share the 10 keys you need to overcome self-sabotage once and for all. And guess what I'm basing this on? That's right, Stoic wisdom. Those ancient thinkers already knew the secret to stop being your own worst enemy and start building a life filled with confidence and inner peace. So tell me, are you ready to make peace with yourself? Let's get started. 1. Your worst enemy lives within you. You've probably experienced this before. You set a clear goal, like starting to exercise. At first, you're motivated and tell yourself, "This time will be different." But then, almost as if a voice inside you whispers in your ear, excuses start to creep in. "Not today, I'm too tired. It's not like I'll stick with it anyway. It's way too cold out." That voice, it's not coming from anyone else. That's your inner enemy. And yes, we all have one. Did you know that, more often than not, we are our own worst saboteurs? It's as if there's a little gremlin inside us, one that knows all our weaknesses, fears, and insecurities and uses them against us. Imagine for a moment that you're in a dark room. You can't see anything, but you can sense something lurking there. That's your shadow, the hidden part of you that holds everything you've repressed. Your fears, your failures, your insecurities, but also your untapped talents and potential. Psychologist Carl Jung explained it simply. Your shadow is like the dark silhouette that always follows you. It's the part of you that you can't see when you're looking straight ahead, yet it's always there, trailing behind. This shadow holds everything you'd rather not face, your fears, your insecurities, your failures. And when does it become an even bigger problem? The more you ignore it, the larger and scarier it seems. It's like walking at sunset when your shadow stretches far across the ground, covering more space than you thought possible. But here's the thing. If you turn around and take a closer look, you'll realize it's nothing more than an extension of yourself. Now think about this. Can a shadow exist without light? It can't. That's the good news. Your light is far more powerful than your shadow. If you take the time to really observe it, you'll discover something remarkable. It's not just the negative parts of you in there. It also hides parts of yourself you don't even know you have. Like what? Talents you haven't dared to explore or strengths you haven't yet discovered. So, transform it. Think of your shadow as a guide, pointing out what you need to work on to grow. Stoicism offers a key lesson for confronting this. Know yourself with brutal honesty. Marcus Aurelius summed it up perfectly. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you don't recognize that inner enemy, you'll end up painting your life in the wrong colors: doubt, fear, procrastination. But if you face it, you can transform those shadows into light. At this point, you might be asking, how do I face something I can't even see? This is where the hard, but necessary, work begins. The first step is observation. Pay attention to those moments when you hold back, when something inside you whispers, "I can't." Write down those thoughts and emotions. Is it fear of failure, fear of success, insecurity? By identifying them, you start stripping them of their power. It's not easy, I know, but it's like training a muscle. Every time you recognize that inner enemy, it gets weaker and you grow stronger. If you catch yourself procrastinating, maybe it's because you're afraid of failing. That fear becomes your shadow, your inner enemy. But what happens when you acknowledge it and confront it? You begin to see that failure isn't the end, it's a lesson. Think of it this way. Your inner enemy only has the power you give it. It's like a barking dog behind a fence. It can make noise, it can scare you, but it can't touch you unless you open the gate. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, what's really holding me back? Is it the world, my circumstances, or is it me? Be honest, because only when you recognize that enemy can you begin to defeat it. Self-sabotage isn't something you overcome overnight, but with every step you take, you move closer to becoming your greatest ally. Because in the end, the only one who decides whether that inner enemy wins is you. 2. Make peace with your shadow. Let's cut to the chase, my friend. If you want to stop sabotaging yourself, you have to stop running from your shadow. I know it sounds strange. How do you make peace with something that's been holding you back for years? Let me tell you a story to make it clearer. Not too long ago, a friend of mine was going through a tough time. He felt like every time he tried to move forward in life, something stopped him. One day, he admitted to me, "I don't think I'm cut out for success. I always mess things up." When we dug deeper, we found something surprising. Every time he was close to achieving something important, he found an excuse to quit. Why? Deep down, he was scared he wouldn't measure up. That was his shadow working against him. But instead of fighting it, he decided to take a different approach. What did he do? Instead of trying to win the internal battle, he started listening to what his shadow was trying to tell him. That doesn't mean he agreed with it, but he began asking important questions. Where is this fear coming from? What am I trying to protect by acting this way? Little by little, he stopped seeing his shadow as an enemy and started treating it as a messenger. Think of your shadow like a scared little child. The more you ignore or scold them, the louder they cry. But if you take the time to listen and ask what they need, everything changes. Maybe that fear of failure is just an echo of something someone told you in the past, something your shadow has been carrying for you. Or maybe that insecurity you feel when speaking in public is an old wound you've never dared to face. Marcus Aurelius put it best: every obstacle we face strengthens our soul. Making peace with your shadow is exactly that. Facing those uncomfortable parts of yourself and recognizing them as tools to strengthen your character. It's not about hiding them or pretending they don't exist. It's about learning to use them to your advantage, like a warrior who turns their wounds into marks of resilience. To stop sabotaging yourself, you need courage. Yes. But it's not as complicated as it seems. Want to know how to do it? First, talk to your shadow. Yes, literally. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, what are you trying to tell me? Write down whatever comes to mind. It doesn't matter if it seems absurd. This exercise helps you connect with the parts of yourself you've been ignoring. Second, be patient. The next time you catch yourself procrastinating or sabotaging yourself, don't get frustrated. Remind yourself that this is a process, something you're working to improve. This small shift in perspective can turn what seemed like an obstacle into an opportunity to grow. Lastly, get creative. Sometimes words aren't enough to connect with your shadow. Why not try drawing what you feel? You don't have to be an artist. This is about expressing what's inside you. I've seen people depict their shadow as an animal, a dark place, or even a younger version of themselves. Creativity gives you the freedom to explore without judgment. Making peace with your shadow doesn't mean accepting everything without change. It's like forming a contract with that part of you that you've been ignoring. You acknowledge its existence, understand where it's coming from, and assign it a new role. It's no longer there to hold you back. It's there to help you grow. Think about this. Every time you face your shadow, remember that you're not fighting an enemy. You're working with a part of yourself. It's not perfect, but neither are you, and that's okay. In the end, your shadow is a reminder that within your darkest parts lies the potential for your brightest light. Before we continue, if you're finding this content valuable, consider subscribing and becoming an exclusive member to unlock unique benefits. And let us know in the comments, what changes will you make to stop sabotaging yourself? We'd love to grow together with you. 3. Break the cycle of self-sabotage. Picture yourself in a maze. At first, you walk in confidently, sure that finding the exit will be easy. But the further you go, the more lost you feel. You take a path that seems right, only to hit a dead end. You try again, but the same thing happens. Twists, frustration, and that sinking feeling of being trapped. Now, pause and think. How many times have you felt like this in life? That maze is the cycle of self-sabotage. Every time you sabotage yourself, you're walking down paths you already know lead nowhere. Yet you keep taking them because you don't know another way. Do you know how the cycle of self-sabotage begins? With an excuse. I don't have time today. That's just the way I am. Good things never last. But what's behind these phrases? Excuses. Beneath each one, there's an emotion you don't want to face. Maybe you procrastinate not because you're tired, but because you're afraid of failing. Or maybe you turn down an opportunity not because it's bad, but because success scares you too. Yes, even success. A Harvard University study found that many people avoid progress because they fear they won't live up to the expectations that come with it. Let's be honest, growing can be scarier than staying stuck. Here's the problem. Every time you accept an excuse, you reinforce the pattern. It's like a path through the woods. The more you walk it, the more worn and permanent it becomes. Marcus Aurelius said it best, life is very simple, but we insist on making it complicated. And let's be real, isn't he right? We're the ones who put obstacles in our own way, making everything harder than it needs to be. We overthink, we doubt, we invent excuses, and that's where self-sabotage thrives. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. When you stop complicating things and start simplifying your thoughts and actions, you lighten the load and let life flow. Sometimes, all you need to move forward is to step out of your own head. Think about this. You decide to start exercising. You buy the shoes, look up videos online, even mark the perfect day to begin on your calendar. The day arrives, and just as you're about to get off the couch, that little voice pipes up, "Today's not the right time. I'm too tired. I'll start on Monday to do it properly." Or worse, why bother? I always quit anyway. So you let the day pass. But instead of relief, you feel that familiar mix of frustration and guilt. Sound familiar? So how do you break the cycle of self-sabotage? It's easier than you think. Grab a piece of paper and map out the situations where you've sabotaged yourself. For example, how many times have you promised to start exercising and didn't? Write down every excuse you told yourself. I'm tired. I'll wait until Monday. What's the point? I'll quit anyway. Then, next to each excuse, write what was really behind it. Maybe it was fear of failing again, or insecurity about not knowing where to start. When you see this on paper, something shifts. It's like turning on a light in a dark corner of your mind. You realize that many of those excuses weren't real. They were just ways to avoid facing what scares you. And once you recognize those patterns, you can break them. Now you can start building a plan to act, not from a place of excuses, but from action. So, how about grabbing that piece of paper and starting right now? It's a small step, but it can change everything. Here's the hard truth that also sets you free. The only way out of the cycle of self-sabotage is to break it. But don't do it tomorrow. Don't wait until everything is perfect. Break it today. Every time you choose action over avoidance, you're carving out a new path, one that leads you out of the maze. So the next time you find yourself running in circles, stop and ask yourself, am I going to keep walking this familiar path, or will I take a different direction? The exit is there. It's up to you to move toward it. 4. Master your emotions. Have you ever felt like your emotions are completely running the show? Of course you have. It's awful. That moment when fear paralyzes you, insecurity whispers that you're not enough, or frustration pushes you to quit before you even begin. Now think about it. How many times have these emotions led you to sabotage yourself? They've hurt you, held you back. It's like they're on autopilot, steering your life toward the same destination, giving up before making progress. But what if I told you those same emotions, instead of holding you back, could become your greatest allies? Yes, the ones that feel like barriers right now can be powerful tools if you learn to observe and manage them. Think of what Marcus Aurelius once said. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And what is that strength? It's learning to control your emotions instead of letting them control you. Take Simon Sinek as an example. In his famous TED Talk, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, he shares something you might not expect. He wasn't always the confident speaker you see today. In an interview, he admitted that before stepping on stage, his body would react with nerves, sweaty palms, a knot in his stomach, a racing heart. Instead of fighting those feelings, he started interpreting them differently. Rather than thinking, "I'm nervous," he told himself, "I'm excited." That small mental shift completely changed his approach. Simon didn't eliminate his emotions. He transformed them into fuel to connect with his audience. Now think about your own life. What emotions are holding you back? Maybe it's fear of failure, anger when things don't go your way, or anxiety over not being perfect. These emotions won't disappear, but you can learn to observe them like a spectator, rather than letting them take over. It's like watching a movie. You're not the protagonist caught in the drama. You're the person in the seat, watching it all unfold with a wider perspective. To start mastering your emotions and stop sabotaging yourself, you can try these techniques. First, name them. When something overwhelms you, give your emotions a name. This is fear. This is frustration. This is insecurity. Naming them takes away some of their power. And this isn't just wishful thinking. A study from the University of California found that when you identify and label an emotion, it reduces activity in the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for intense emotional responses. It's like turning down the volume on that noise that keeps you from thinking clearly. Second, reframe your narrative. Do what Simon Sinek did. Reframe what you're feeling. If you're nervous before a presentation, say, "I'm excited." If you feel fear, think, "This is a sign I'm stepping out of my comfort zone." It's not about ignoring what you feel, but giving it a meaning that empowers you instead of paralyzing you. Third, pause. The Stoics often emphasize the importance of calm before action. Seneca said, "The pressure of adversity does not affect the spirit of the brave. It is stronger than external circumstances." The key here isn't about eliminating what's happening around you or avoiding what you feel. It's about remembering that you have the power to choose how you react. Imagine being in the middle of a storm. You can't stop the wind or rain, but you can choose whether to let yourself be swept away or find shelter and wait it out. That pause, when you breathe and count to 5, that's your shelter. Finally, practice and be patient. Don't expect to master your emotions overnight. It's like learning to play the guitar. You wouldn't expect to perform a concert the next day, right? The same goes for emotions. You need practice. Start with small daily exercises, like journaling about what you felt during the day and how you reacted. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns and gain more control over your responses. Think of it this way. Your emotions are like waves in the ocean. Some will be big, others small, but none of them last forever. You can't stop them, but you can learn to ride them. And every time you do, you grow stronger and more skilled at navigating the waters of life. 5. Bring your hidden potential to light. My friend, have you ever realized how skilled we are at hiding from our own potential? It's like carrying a buried treasure inside you, but choosing to ignore it. Let me tell you something. That fear of digging deep and discovering your worth is sabotaging you. You keep telling yourself "I can't" over and over again, burying that treasure further each time. Think about it. If you don't dare to look beneath the surface, how will you ever find out what you're truly capable of? Now imagine this treasure isn't just made of gold. It's full of parts of yourself you've never explored. Talents, skills, ideas you don't even know you have. And yes, digging might uncover things you don't like, flaws, limitations, but often those very things are what hide your greatest strengths. It's like needing to walk through the shadows to reach the light. And as we've already learned, those shadows can become our best allies. So, why don't we do it? The answer is often fear. Fear of shining. It might sound strange, but think about it. Standing out means being seen, taking on more responsibilities, facing the expectations of others. And that's scary. It's easier to stay in a corner, in that comfortable place where no one asks more of you than what you already give. But staying in that corner, my friend, is costing you far more than you realize. Maurice Ashley, the first African-American international grandmaster in chess, is a perfect example of what it means to bring your potential to light. Maurice didn't just achieve greatness in the chess world, he also uncovered an unexpected talent: teaching. Could he have stopped at his championships? Sure, it would have been the easiest choice, but how could he not use all his potential? He tapped into his creativity to develop unique strategies that inspired young people from underprivileged communities. His potential wasn't just in moving chess pieces, it was in showing others how chess could be a tool for life. Now imagine if he hadn't unearthed that treasure. So many young people would have missed out on that opportunity. But don't get this wrong. Recognizing you have hidden potential isn't enough. You need to act. As Marcus Aurelius said, it's not enough to know what is right, you have to do it. That means accepting that you'll never feel completely ready, but doing it anyway. Because, my friend, the only perfect moment to start is now. Picture this. You're faced with an opportunity, starting a project, learning something new, or finally doing something you've been putting off for years. But instead of moving forward, you start questioning yourself. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What will people think? That doubt paralyzes you and self-sabotage takes over. But let me ask you this. How many opportunities have you missed because you were stuck in that internal dialogue? Let's stop just talking about it and make it real. Grab a piece of paper and a pen because we're about to uncover that hidden treasure inside you. Write down all the things people have ever told you you're good at, but that you never took seriously. Maybe someone told you that you explain things well, but you brushed it off as nothing special. Or maybe they said you're great at motivating others, but you never saw it as a talent. Now, next to each one, write how you could develop it. Could you use it at work? In a personal project? This simple exercise is like turning on a light in a place you thought was empty. Don't forget, uncovering your potential is like shining a flashlight in a dark room you thought was empty. You'll find it's filled with valuable things that were always there. Every time you dare to illuminate another corner, you'll discover skills and talents that will surprise you. And once you see them, you'll never want to turn off that light again. Now tell me, what did you discover about your own potential while doing this exercise? Share in the comments what skill or talent has been waiting to shine. We want to know you better and see you light up your path. 6. Create to free yourself. Imagine a blank canvas in front of you. No rules, no expectations. It's just there waiting for you to do something with it. It can feel intimidating, this empty space that whispers, "Here, you can create anything." But it's also thrilling, because it gives you the chance to start fresh. Every brushstroke is an expression of what's inside you, of who you really are. Now think about this. What if your life were that canvas? That's exactly what happened to a painter you surely know, Vincent van Gogh. You might not realize it, but Van Gogh spent years searching for his place in the world. He felt trapped, unsure of where he fit in. He tried everything from being a pastor to a bookseller, but nothing felt right. He remained stuck. During that time, he struggled with deep insecurity and relentless self-sabotage, doubting himself and his ability to contribute anything valuable. But everything changed the day he picked up a paintbrush. Van Gogh didn't start painting to become a genius or achieve fame. Quite the opposite. Painting was his refuge. It was his way of expressing everything he couldn't put into words. His emotions, his pain, even his loneliness came alive with every stroke. Did you know that in just 10 years, he created over 2,000 works of art? Not because anyone demanded it, but because he found his greatest freedom in creating. Even though he only sold one painting during his lifetime, his art freed him and inspired him to live fully. And this isn't just a feel-good story. It's backed by science. A study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that creative activities boost our sense of well-being and reduce stress levels. You don't need to be a great artist. You could write, plant a small garden, or redecorate a corner of your home. Creating is like opening a valve, releasing everything you're carrying, both the good and the bad. It's not just an artistic act, it's a way to let go of what's holding you back. Picture this. You come home after a tough day, replaying everything that went wrong. You start beating yourself up. I shouldn't have said that, or I could have avoided that mistake. But what if instead, you decided to do something creative? Maybe you write your thoughts on paper, try out a new recipe, or rearrange your space. You don't have to be an artist to be creative. Every small act of creation is a declaration of freedom, a message to yourself that says, I can transform what I feel into something new. Epictetus put it perfectly. It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we hold about them. Creating is a way to change those opinions, to take what's bothering you and turn it into something that makes sense to you. Each time you do this, you step further away from self-sabotage, wondering how to start letting all that bottled up energy out. Find a moment each day, even if it's just 5 minutes, to express yourself creatively. It doesn't have to be complicated. Write what you feel without worrying about grammar, sketch even if you don't know how to draw, or cook something new and savor it as if you're a chef in a Michelin-starred restaurant. The goal isn't to create something perfect, it's to release what's inside you. And here's a tip. Set up a physical space dedicated to creating. It could be a corner in your home where you feel comfortable, away from distractions. Having a spot that's just for you and your expression is like a sanctuary where you can reconnect with yourself and break free from the chains of self-sabotage. Every time you create something, you're breaking the cycle of self-doubt. You're proving over and over that you're capable of taking control of your life and making something out of it. 7. Small steps, big changes. My friend, let's be honest. This is your safe space. How many times have you told yourself you were going to change something, only to end up doing nothing? Be truthful. Maybe you thought, I'm going to work out every day for 2 hours, no exceptions. Or, I'm going to learn an entire language in 3 months. But what happened next? Nothing. Because that goal wasn't realistic. It was so overwhelming that you sabotaged yourself before you even started. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think Epictetus, with all his wisdom, would have made the same mistake? Imagine him, full of ambition, deciding to become the greatest orator of his time. Inspired, he sets a massive goal: to give speeches to huge crowds immediately, memorize endless texts, and master everything in just 1 month. But before the week is over, the pressure crushes him. He feels useless, incapable, and gives up. Because even the wisest fail when they set impossible goals. But think about it. What would he have done instead? Epictetus wasn't one to stay stuck. After reflecting, he changes his approach. Instead of aiming for gigantic goals, he starts small. He practices for 5 minutes a day in front of a mirror, repeats 1 sentence at a time, and little by little becomes the great orator we remember today. Here's the trap. Big goals can be inspiring, but if they're unrealistic, they become a form of self-sabotage. It's like looking at a mountain and wanting to reach the summit in a single leap. What you need isn't to sprint uphill without stopping. You need to take the first step, small but steady. And here's something that might sting. If you keep setting impossible goals, it's not because you truly want to surpass yourself. Deep down, it's because you know you won't achieve them. It's a clever way to stay where you are, without feeling like you've failed. But let me ask you, how much longer are you going to wait before doing things differently? Now picture this. You've been telling yourself for ages that you want to start writing. You buy a new notebook, a nice pen, and promise to write an entire chapter every day. But days turn into weeks, and the notebook stays empty. Why? Because the goal was so big, you never even started. You fell into your own trap. But what if you'd broken that goal down into smaller steps? So next time, do this. Pick a goal, but make it so small it feels almost ridiculous. Want to read more? Commit to reading just 2 pages a day. Want to improve your health? Start by walking for 5 minutes. Want to learn something new? Spend just 10 minutes a day on it. It might seem insignificant, but those small steps are what get you unstuck. Remember, those who move steadily, even slowly, will go further than those who sprint and stop. When you feel overwhelmed by a big goal, don't focus on everything you need to do. Focus on the smallest step you can take today, because that step, no matter how tiny it seems, is the beginning of something much bigger. It's how you stop tripping yourself up and start building the life you truly want. 8. Listen to the truth of others. Let me guess. When someone tells you something you don't want to hear, your first reaction is to get defensive. Maybe you think, they have no idea what they're talking about, or why are they criticizing me? But what if I told you that ignoring these truths is another form of self-sabotage? One of the quietest and most damaging kinds. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The words that unsettle you the most are often the ones you need to hear the most. Picture this. A friend tells you, "You're always putting things off, you should just go for it." Ouch, right? But here's the thing. Honest feedback, even when it stings, is a powerful tool for breaking free from self-sabotage. Why? Because there are parts of yourself you simply can't see from where you stand. It's like trying to look at your own back without a mirror. You need someone else to reflect it for you. I know what you're thinking. But what if I don't like what I hear? Well, welcome to the world of personal growth. Listening to uncomfortable truths isn't easy, but it's essential. Because the things you don't confront, the truths you avoid, become even bigger obstacles. Every time someone shares their truth with you, you have 2 choices. Ignore it and stay the same, or embrace it and use it to grow. Think of it like this. You're an emotional GPS. When someone says, "You always react impulsively," or "There you go again making excuses," they're giving you a waypoint. It doesn't mean you have to take the first turn they suggest, but you can use it to find the right path. Start asking yourself, is this true? How can I improve? Those questions are what help you escape the cycle of self-sabotage. Take Ray Dalio, one of the most successful investors in the world, as an example. In his book Principles, he shares how his success was built on honest feedback from his team. He realized that his lack of confidence and blind spots were causing mistakes in his company. So he created a system where anyone could critique his ideas, even if it meant telling him he was wrong. Can you imagine that? Telling your boss where they've messed up or what won't work. For Dalio, it was the key to his growth because he understood that his perspective was limited. And the best part? He didn't just apply this in business, but also in his personal life. But you don't need to be a Wall Street investor to apply this. Want to learn how to listen to the truth of others? First, seek feedback from the right people. This isn't about listening to everyone's opinion. Focus on those who genuinely want to see you grow. Close friends, family members, or even a colleague who admires your work. Ask them specific questions like, "What do you think I could improve in my communication?" Or, "Is there something you've noticed that might be holding me back?" Second, listen without getting defensive. This one's tough, I know, but if your first reaction to feedback is to justify yourself, you're not learning. Pause, listen, and reflect. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone proves me wrong, I'll gladly change." If he could do it, why can't you? That's true strength. But be careful. Not every piece of feedback is gospel truth. Filter it through your own understanding and apply what makes sense. For example, if you're always late and a friend points out that you lack organization, acknowledge it. Start taking small steps to become more structured. You don't need a dramatic overhaul, just consistent, manageable changes. Every time you ignore what others see in you, you're letting your shadow stay in control. You're choosing the comfort of denial over the discomfort of growth. But my friend, it's in that discomfort where your true potential lies. So the next time someone offers you a truth that's hard to hear, don't run from it. Embrace it as a chance to uncover a part of yourself you've been avoiding, and use it to break free. 9. Turn your weaknesses into strengths. Here's something you've probably never been told. Your weaknesses are not your enemy. I know it sounds strange, but sometimes the very things you try to hide or ignore can become your greatest allies. Let me explain with a little story. Once there was a farmer who used 2 pots to carry water from a river to his home. One pot was in perfect condition, but the other had a crack. Each time the farmer made the trip, the cracked pot arrived with only half the water, while the other remained full. Frustrated by its imperfection, the cracked pot said to the farmer, "Why do you keep using me? I never do my job properly." The farmer smiled and replied, "Haven't you noticed? Thanks to your crack, the path to my house is lined with flowers. Every day the water you lose nourishes these plants, bringing us beauty and joy." Do you see where I'm going with this? We all have cracks, weaknesses we'd rather hide or ignore. But what if those very weaknesses were the key to creating something unique and valuable? The problem is, instead of finding ways to use them to our advantage, we let them become excuses for self-sabotage. Stoicism teaches us to see things differently. Marcus Aurelius said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." What does this mean? It means those things we perceive as weaknesses can become our greatest strengths if we learn to face them and reframe them. But first, you have to stop seeing yourself through the lens of harsh self-criticism and start seeing the possibilities behind every challenge. Imagine you've always considered yourself too shy in large groups. For years, you've told yourself this makes you less sociable or incapable of leading. But what if you reframe that shyness as a strength? A capacity to observe and listen more deeply to others. Suddenly you realize that while others dominate conversations, you have the ability to notice details and understand people on a deeper level. What once seemed like a weakness becomes a strength, allowing you to build authentic connections and demonstrate thoughtful, empathetic leadership. So, my friend, what are you overlooking about yourself because you're too focused on your cracks? To turn your weaknesses into strengths, start with these steps. First, identify your weaknesses. Take a piece of paper and write down all the things you've always considered flaws. Maybe you're too impatient, insecure, or a bit disorganized. Be honest with yourself and lay it all out. Second, look for opportunities. Next to each weakness, write down a way it could work to your advantage. For example, if you're impatient, maybe that makes you great at finding quick solutions under pressure. If you're disorganized, perhaps you have a creative mind that thrives in flexible environments where rigid structures don't apply. Third, accept imperfection. Understand that you'll never be perfect, and that's okay. The goal isn't to eliminate your flaws, but to integrate them as part of what makes you unique. Like the cracked pot in the story, your imperfections can bring something beautiful to life if you learn to see them differently. At the end of the day, it's not your weaknesses that hold you back. It's your perspective on them. And remember, as Marcus Aurelius said, what seems like an obstacle can become the way forward. You get to decide whether your cracks will be a reason to give up or an opportunity to bloom. 10. Live authentically. Imagine this. You have a job where every day you have to do things that go against your beliefs, but you tell yourself to endure it because it's safe or there's no other option. Or maybe fear creeps in. What if I can't find something better? Every time you tell yourself these stories, you're betraying an important part of who you are, the part that knows what you truly want and need. And with each decision that goes against your values, you're digging yourself deeper into the hole of self-sabotage. Living without authenticity is one of the most subtle and dangerous ways to sabotage yourself. It doesn't seem serious at first, but over time, you start to feel disconnected, unsatisfied, and worst of all, lost. Because, my friend, when you're not true to who you really are, you end up living a life that doesn't feel like yours. So how do you overcome this self-inflicted harm? The real power lies in aligning yourself with your nature and your values. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Do every act with a clear purpose, aligned with your principles and with sincerity." But how can you live by your principles if you're not even being honest with yourself. Living authentically isn't just an act of courage. It's the first step to breaking free from self-sabotage and starting to live with purpose. The first thing you need to do is identify where you're betraying yourself. Make a list of the areas in your life where you feel you're not being authentic. Maybe it's at work, in your relationships, or even in how you present yourself to the world. Ask yourself, does this truly represent who I am? Am I living according to what I want, or am I living based on what others expect from me? And don't forget your values. Don't know what they are? Then it's time to define them. This may seem basic, but many of us haven't taken the time to reflect on what truly matters to us. What do you value most in life? Honesty? Freedom? Creativity? Once you have a clear understanding of what's important to you, it becomes easier to align your decisions with those values. Lastly, learn to say no when it's necessary. I know this can be tough, especially when your finances or relationships depend on it. But saying no to things that don't align with you is one of the most powerful ways to live authentically. Remember what Seneca said, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste so much of it." Every time you say no to something that doesn't fit who you are, you're making room to say yes to yourself. You're creating space for what truly matters and giving yourself the chance to grow. So let me ask you this, how much longer are you going to keep betraying yourself? Today could be the day you decide enough is enough, the day you start saying yes to who you truly are. Because, my friend, living authentically doesn't just free you from self-sabotage. It also opens the door to a life that feels fuller, more meaningful, and at peace with who you are. I invite you to embrace the power of reconnecting with who you truly are. Every step you take to stop sabotaging yourself is an opportunity to uncover your true potential. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about being brave. Brave enough to face your shadows, embrace your strengths, and live a life that reflects your authentic self. This journey won't be easy, but I promise you, every small step forward will make it all worth it. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I break free from my own limits." That way, I'll know who the true Stoic warriors are who made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like so you don't miss out on what's coming next. I also invite you to check out our playlist, which you'll see on the screen. It's packed with ideas, stories, and advice to help you navigate life with more wisdom and confidence. Click it, and let's keep moving forward together. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your inner Stoic.